Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video, and we're just going to get straight into it. There's not a whole lot of frontline updates this time around, but there are quite a lot of geopolitical updates, so we're going to try to get through the frontline updates quickly. In the Siversk, Bakhmut sort of region here, apparently the Russian forces, according to Rybar, have captured Bilohorivka right here, but this hasn't been confirmed by other sources, so there are rumors of Ukraine evacuating this area, retreating from this area right here east of Siversk, but I haven't seen anything other than rumors yet, and the only people reporting on Bilohorivka being captured is Rybar, so this may end up being true tomorrow. We might get more confirmation, but as of now, it is just a rumor. Moving down south, Wagner forces have captured these towns right here to the south of Siversk near Fyodorivka and Rozhodolivka. This town Mykolaiv here, and this town Sako I Van Iste, something along those lines. But they've captured these two towns right here, and this is putting pressure on the Siversk grouping here of Ukrainian units, and it is putting pressure on this general area as they continue to advance and secure the area around Soledar. This was on the 2nd, and this was on the 1st right here. Blahodatne has also been captured on January 28th. They secured this town right here to the north of Krasnohora and Paraskolivka, and this is continuing to put pressure on Bakhmut and this area right here, which, aside from all but one road right here, is cut off actually, according to several reports from people on the ground. The TO504 highway is under Russian fire control, and what that means is that Russian artillery and mortars and things like that are able to fire on this road, and so this road is not usable because the Russians have effective artillery fire and precise artillery fire along this highway. And obviously these roads right here are unusable because of how close the Russians are. So there's all but one supply route out of Bakhmut, as well as Ukrainians saying that they are going to defend Bakhmut for as long as they can. They're not going to pull out of the city until the last possible moment, is basically what they're saying. So we will see how long they can hold the city for, but it is basically a matter of time until the city falls, as there is not a lot that they can do to defend it and to supply the defenders within the city itself. It is taking longer to fall than I initially thought, but it does seem as of now inevitable that this city will fall to the Russians, just it's taken longer than most people expected that it would. And that is pretty much it for the frontline update. The sort of Zaporizhzhia offensive never culminated into anything major. Nothing was taken. It was mostly a stalemate. Nothing really happened with that. So we are going to move on, although there are some reports of Russians attacking this area here to the north of Tursk and Cherny and Totorsk and this area. They've advanced in the fields here, but other than that, not really a whole lot of news from the front line the past 2 weeks. So now we're going to go into the geopolitical aspect and the more strategic aspect of this war, which the United States and Germany have both said that they are going to send main battle tanks to Ukraine. The United States is going to send 31 M1 Abrams to Ukraine, and Germany says that it is going to send Leopard 2s and allow others to send Leopard 2s. So the Chancellor Scholz has said that he's going to send at least 14 Leopard 2s, that the Germans are going to send 14 Leopard 2s, and Poland is also going to send Leopard 2s, and we reported that the United Kingdom is going to send Challenger 2s to Ukraine. So Ukraine is getting a decent amount of Western main battle tanks. However, this is not really enough. The Ukrainians have requested a lot more than just around 60 to 70 main battle tanks in total is what they might be getting, around that number. So they requested, I think, around 400. So according to the Ukrainians, this is not enough to really change anything strategically. The West has not been very good at sending enough equipment to Ukraine. I'm not really sure why the West is not sending more, because they could afford it, and it would make sense from a geopolitical level and a grand strategic level to send as much equipment to Ukraine and to try to get Ukraine to a position to where they can successfully conduct offensives against, for example, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Crimea, and try to take Crimea from the Russians. Although that would be very, very difficult. But it would make sense to for the West to try and get Ukraine to a position where they can take as much territory back as possible, but they don't seem to be sending all the necessary equipment for that, so I'm not entirely sure why. And speaking of NATO, there have been incidents where there was protests in Stockholm in Sweden where some kind of right-wing rally or protest, something along those lines. They burnt the Quran, copies of the Quran, and so now Erdogan, the president of Turkey, has said to Sweden that they shouldn't expect Turkey's support for its bid in NATO membership. In order to join NATO, all of the member states of NATO must agree to allow you to join NATO, and Turkey's a NATO member state, so this was on the 23rd of January, so even more trouble for NATO and the West, where you have Turkey, which is not, we've gone over this, but they are not pro-Western, really. They are their own power with their own geopolitical interests, and preventing Sweden and Finland from joining NATO appears to be in their interest, or at least the current sitting government in Turkey's interest. Quote, "Those who allow such blasphemy in front of our embassy can no longer expect our support for their NATO membership," he said in a speech. So, and something similar also with Finland, that Finland's foreign minister said on Thursday on the 24th that a pause of a few weeks was needed in Finland and Sweden's talks with Turkey on their application to join the NATO military alliance. So the future of the Baltic expansion, the NATO Baltic expansion is, or I should say a Scandinavian expansion, but they are in the Baltic Sea. But this future of a Sweden and Finnish NATO membership seems uncertain at the moment because of Turkey's very very right-wing populist leader, and also it's not only just because of populism and nationalism, but also the strategic interests of trying to appease both Russia and the West, and also trying to further their own interests in the Middle East. So Turkey is definitely a powerful country with a lot of foreign influence, and they should not be underestimated in geopolitical affairs. We're going to move over to the Middle East, where an incident between Israel and Iran flared up, where an alleged Israeli drone strike on an Iranian missile factory, it appears. So according to the Iranian government, on January 29th, they quote, thwarted a unsuccessful drone attacks. They said that one of the drones was hit by the air defense, the other two were caught in defensive traps and blown up, said the statement. Fortunately, this unsuccessful attack did not cause any loss of life, and it caused minor damage to the workshop's roof, it said. The statement said, but there are obviously reports that it did cause more damage, and not everyone is trusting the Iranian government's statement on this, but the damage to the factory is currently unknown. All we have is the word of the Iranian government and their news agencies. And the United States says that Israel appears to have been behind the attack. So a very interesting event has happened. And what I find interesting was that on the 23rd, the United States and Israel held probably their largest military exercise they've ever conducted together. One of the largest military exercises, where about 6,400 U.S. personnel and 1,100 Israeli personnel, with a total of 142 aircraft, participated in this military exercise. I believe it was in the southern desert of Israel. Or they also used HIMARS, and they used 1,800 pounds of live munitions in the military exercise. And a few days after that, the drone strike occurred. So probably not a coincidence, in my opinion, that there's probably some connection between that. As well as on the 29th, the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, landed on Egypt to start a 3-day visit in the Middle East, with violence between Israelis and Palestinians flaring up as well. And of course this drone attack on Iran. So a lot has happened in the Middle East recently. So it's very concerning, this flare-up of tensions and violence in the region. Even more so on the 27th, a gunman shot a security guard and wounded 2 other personnel at Azerbaijan's embassy in Iran. This was reported on the 27th. And the Azerbaijani foreign minister responded strongly to the attack, summoning Iran's ambassador in Baku to demand justice and saying it would evacuate its embassy staff from Tehran. It said an anti-Azerbaijani campaign in Iran had contributed to the attack. So I'm trying to make this video brief, but in short, Azerbaijan and Iran, sorry, do not have positive relations. They don't have very good relations. During the Nagorno-Karabakh War in 2020, Iran actually supported Armenia during the conflict instead of Azerbaijan. Now, Azerbaijan is a Muslim country, and so is Iran, but there are a large number of Azerbaijanis living in Iran. I don't know the exact number, but it might be somewhere up to 20-25% of Iran's population. I think that might be an overestimation. That might be a too high of a percentage, but it's a sizable minority of Azerbaijanis, of Azeri people living in Iran, in this northern region right over here, south of Azerbaijan. And so Iran fears that if Azerbaijan were to get too powerful and too influential in the region, that they would try to undermine Iranian national security using the Azeri minority in the northern region. Well, they have a majority in this region, but they're a minority in Iran as a whole. As well as Iran and Russia have linked their banking systems, which is not very major news. I just thought I'd share that right there. Iran and Russia have a increasingly growing alliance and closer cooperation on many different issues. As well as just this final note of Qatar boosting its influence in Lebanon as well as other Gulf states, it appears. This is a very interesting article from AP News, the Associated Press. I suggest that you go ahead and take a look at it. In some other news here, Russian warships are joining drills with China and South Africa's navies. We reported earlier the last time I believe we had an episode, we reported about the new hypersonic missiles Russian frigates are being armed with, or are going to start being armed with. And these are going to be taking part in exercises with the Chinese and South African navies. I'm not entirely sure where the exercises are being held, but they're being held maybe in the Mediterranean or somewhere in the Indian Ocean. I'm not entirely sure. But it is interesting to see cooperation with South African cooperation with Russia and China. South Africa they are not pro-Western. They are very much pro-Eastern or emerging sort of, like emerging powers and emerging countries that are trying to sort of overthrow Western hegemony. It's a geopolitical term. I haven't really explained it very well, but anyways, they are not pro-Western. They have a very left-wing government, and so this sort of like radical socialist government, I believe, is an accurate way to describe it. So they are close to China and close to Russia, and they are sort of anti-US, the current government and administration in South Africa, and they're increasingly cooperating with China and Russia on many different issues. So and also in Norway, a substantial levels of minerals and metals have been discovered on the Norwegian seabed. So this is important because not long after the discovery was announced that the Kremlin in Russia revealed that President Vladimir Putin had a meeting of his Security Council to discuss the borders and boundaries of the continental shelf in the Arctic Ocean, which was attended by the likes of Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. So I believe in the Norwegian Sea and in this area right here in the northern parts of the Norwegian economic zone, they've discovered minerals and the like. So this is important because the Arctic is increasingly becoming a new theater in not only security operations but also geopolitical interest, as the Earth gets warmer physically and the ice starts to melt and becomes easier to navigate through. The Arctic is increasingly becoming more and more of interest to the likes of Russia and the United States and China even. So we're going to just try to wrap things up here. We go down to Brazil, where the president has replaced the army commander, the commander of the armed forces, who had some kind of... he had something to do with the riots that took place in the capital. I haven't had time to read this article here, but yeah, it could also serve as some kind of pseudo purge, maybe. You know, like you have a riot like this happened, it's a good chance to like remove possible political opponents and sort of blame it on this, like what happened with Alex Jones, which in my opinion, they the United States, government and other left-wing groups tried to get Alex Jones into legal trouble in order to sort of take down his influence in the United States. So something similar could happen here, because that had to do with January 6th, and so this might also be something like that. This stuff tends to happen. I'm not trying to sound conspiratorial or biased or anything, but when there's an opportunity to remove your political opponents, people tend to take it. But anyways, we're going to try to wrap things up here. That's just in my personal opinion. Of course, I could be wrong on that. You should read the article for yourself and come to your own conclusions. So we're going to wrap things up here. Try to read some of these articles. The United States has stopped granting export licenses for China and their Huawei company, which is a company that manufactures technology materials such as smartphones and the like. And so they stopped granting export licenses, as well as the Netherlands and Japan are to join with the United States in restricting Chinese semiconductor equipment. So the United States, Japan, and the Netherlands all manufacture crucial machinery and components into making semiconductors, and they have started to implement or are going to implement restrictions on these exports, which is a major economic and geopolitical win for the United States, getting the Netherlands and Japan to join in on these restrictions. And we're going to move over to the Philippines, again with more news around China and the United States. The Philippines is going to grant greater access to the United States to its military bases amid concerns of China, their defense minister said on Thursday. So the Philippines is an interesting country geopolitically because it is quite reliant on China economically, but in terms of defense and militarily, it sides with the United States on most issues. So it would appear that the Philippines is leaning towards the United States in terms of which side it picks in the geopolitical rivalry between China and the United States. And in other Asian news, Myanmar is invited to a military meeting which is co-chaired by the United States under ASEAN, which is a group of South Asian countries. It's an economic and trade bloc of Southeast Asian countries. And so they're inviting Myanmar to attend a military meeting. And this is important because Myanmar recently, in 2021, I believe, there was a coup d'etat where the military overthrew a democratically elected government, and the United States condemned that, and they condemned the military government. But now it were to appear that the United States is sort of shifting course and trying to renew relations with Myanmar and its government. Of course, this is important because Myanmar borders China, and it's a valuable ally to have in the region. Also in New Zealand, New Zealand is getting a new prime minister, and there was an agreement about artificial intelligence between the United States and the EU. There's a lot of geopolitical news, so it's hard to get it all into one video that isn't too long, but I hope that you have found this video informative, and I hope that I was able to listen to the feedback that you guys have been providing, like trying to move the camera less. But you can check out the map yourself in the description of the video, so you don't have to rely on me and my fast-moving camera panning. You can do it yourself, and I apologize if the videos have been a bit hard to watch because of the panning of the camera. But anyways, I tried my best to listen to all the feedback you give me, and this feedback is how I make this content better. So thank you so much for commenting. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will try to make these videos more consistent. I was sick, so I couldn't upload one last week, but I'm better now, and I'm able to provide more content. I'm able to make more content now that I'm better, so I might make some kind of special video about the alleged Chinese spy balloon in the United States right now. You may notice that that was absent from the geopolitical report. That's because there's too much information, and there's too much preliminary information, and there's not enough conclusive hard facts at the moment. So I might make a special video on that, and it is a very major event, so it probably deserves its own video. But anyways, thank you for watching. Like I said, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.